This is the fifth annual All Roads to the Chaco Canyon conference. The whole point of the conference is to educate people on some of the issues that we're facing on the business sector of Navajo Nation and what are some of the solutions that we can implement to rectify those issues.
You can't attend this fifth annual conference and not be inspired. We are living in extraordinary times. Extraordinary times require extraordinary leadership. Economic development and diversification are extremely important and are at the top of the priority list in Indian country right now. Not just the Navajo, but all of the other 574 federally recognized tribes that exist here in America.
We start off our conference with what we call a crash course on federal Indian law. Now, a lot of people don't know what that is. Some people think that only attorneys know what Indian law is and only attorneys should know about it. And that's not really true when it comes to Native nations in the United States. How did this whole system come about? What created some of these crazy laws and procedures that we see out on the reservation? Why does it take 5 years to get a business site lease? Why do you have to get the secretary's approval? And why can't you put up your land for collateral if you're getting a loan? All these answers to these questions goes back to federal Indian laws.
And these tourists want an experience.
For a lot of people, it's eye-opening, and it's the first time that they really understand why things are the way they are on the reservation and how that came into being and how that affects our societies today.
Not only does it perk up their eyes and light a fire within them, because then they get passionate, and that's good, and they use that as motivation to implement change. One of the big issues that we come across is business registration, also access to land, access to capital. We get people from all walks of life. These are not just business people. Some of them are chapter leaders, some of them are council delegates, a lot of them are business owners, some of them are prospective entrepreneurs. In the States, if you're going to register a business in Arizona, New Mexico, you can do that in less than an hour. You can be paid, you can be operational, you can start moving towards finding a space for your business. Now, when we're dealing with the Navajo Nation, it's different because you have stories of some of the participants saying it took them months to figure out the process, to figure out where to go to get the paperwork. Where do you file the paperwork? How do you pay for this paperwork? A lot of them ended up hiring attorneys, which it should not take an attorney to register your business, but in Navajo Nation it does, so that's kind of the stories that stick out to us.
People just needed to say their piece. It was very cathartic. It's an underlying issue for a lot of the challenges that we have on the reservation. So that's a signal to me that we need to have more of these discussions. And yes, we need to find solutions too, but people need to be heard. There's a lot of trauma that's rooted in these issues, and those are all things that we need to start exploring.
What I was talking about is the growth of the Navajo Power really was catalytic for raising capital. We're a company that's rather unique because we are entrepreneurs, but we're raising capital very differently than how traditionally you would do it on the Navajo Nation. Much more like a Silicon Valley company, but doing it, from sheep camp. So my purpose here was to talk about some of that experience, about how I began raising capital, as well as, just sharing my story so other business owners know, it is possible to do these things. Our specialty is working through a lot of these very complex, political and legal systems that tribes have. And so for our company, it's really important to network and to get to know other tactics, as well as what has been, the foundation for getting buy-in, getting support from different stakeholders, different community members.
Planning is key to every tribe, and identifying those priorities that will sustain your tribal community in terms of education, housing, healthcare, economic development, workforce development, infrastructure needs. Those things are always at the forefront.
Our government system has some dysfunction. It's also up to us to kind of own the solutions going forward. I heard a gentleman in one of the conversations yesterday talk about, being a rancher and how that related to trying to start a business. Whether it's where to put your animals and your livestock are very similar to how you cite a business. Those same grazing issues, land acquisition challenges are kind of universally, I would say, creating a very unfavorable market for business and almost existence. And events like this can really help to contribute to the thought around how we correct those systems.
What are we doing all this for? What are we working towards? We identifying these issues, having these conferences. What's the main thing that we're trying to do? We're trying to survive as nations. We're trying to survive as unique peoples. Our language, our culture, traditions, lands. We want all of this to continue, not just for the sake of our generations, but for our kids and grandkids and so forth. And so it's very important that we have these discussions and that we understand the problem so that we can break this perpetual cycle of these issues happening generation after generation.
I think it's a huge success that there's more and more chapters that are attending these sorts of events, having these discussions, connecting with each other. We need more of that. If not from here, then from anywhere.
If we were to lose who we are in regards to our customs, traditions, and language, there's no point in having a nation. So it's basically two battles that we're trying to fight: rebuild our nations and then maintain our identity. We need both of them in order to move forward as Native people and Native nations. So that's what All Roads to the Chaco Canyon is about.
Eu caí de